Adam Schiff thought he had a slam dunk moment. Take a look.
Are the race-neutral policies like those used by University of California, which Justice Thomas explicitly praised in that opinion, now considered by you to be illegal DEI?
During a Senate hearing, the congressman relentlessly pressed the Assistant Attorney General, twisting Justice Thomas's words just to get a reaction, only to completely lose it when she refused to take the bait.
Okay, so Justice Thomas got it wrong. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Well, you are saying that.
That's why today we're covering this interesting back and forth, because we're not here to follow parties blindly, we're here for common sense. So, if you're an independent thinker, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
In the SFFA versus Harvard opinion, the Supreme Court held that nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise, allowing universities to continue assessing students' experience with race on an individualized basis. In that opinion, in his concurrence, Justice Thomas praised the University of California for achieving diversity through race-neutral policies, including preferences for low-income applicants and first-generation students, and recruiting efforts targeted at areas with substantial populations of people of color. Are the race-neutral policies like those used by University of California, which Justice Thomas explicitly praised in that opinion, now considered by you to be illegal DEI?
Well, Senator, first of all, the investigation that we've opened is an investigation, and it's an investigation into the hiring policies of the University of California system, not the admissions policies. That said, I have absolutely seen abuses in the admissions policies.
Now, for context, the case Adam was referring to here happened 2 years ago, when the Students for Fair Admissions won a landmark 6-3 Supreme Court decision against Harvard. The core argument was that the university's admission process, quote, discriminates against Asian American applicants and white applicants in favor of underrepresented minority applicants. Schiff was misrepresenting Justice Thomas's opinion because the man was strongly advocating for merit-based admissions and pointed to California's Proposition 209, which bans racial preferences in public education as a real-world example of race-blind policy success. Thomas wasn't crediting the University of California itself, but rather the policy behind its approach. Schiff, however, cherry-picked the line from the opinion and put his spin on it. And once you understand that, his next move comes off as even more manipulative.
That's not the question I asked you. Are the race-neutral policies praised by Justice Thomas now considered by you to be illegal DEI?
I think you're mixing apples and oranges, so
well,
I can't really answer your question.
You can answer my question and say, yes, they are now illegal. That is what Justice Thomas praised in terms of race-neutral policies, which include preferences for low-income applicants, first-generation students, things like that. Are you now saying that what Justice Thomas praised is now illegal in your view?
Senator, there's a difference between what you see on paper and what you see in reality, and I reject your premise.
I'm not asking you about particular.
I reject your premise that how California describes its admissions practices is
about whether you subscribe to the Supreme Court's opinion or whether you disagree with Justice Thomas' concurrence. You can answer that question, can't you?
In the abstract, yes. In reality, what you're describing does not exist in the UC system.
So when we look at the hiring practices, it wasn't until earlier this year that UC reversed course and, quote, banned campuses from requiring faculty job applications to submit diversity statements. For those who don't know what a diversity statement is, it's a, quote, written testimony of 1 or 2 pages about how an applicant has worked to enhance and support racial and other kinds of diversity in their fields. On top of that, according to The Hill, quote, the school's 2030 capacity plan has 2 goals for increasing diversity among faculty. So, yeah, in practice, they seem to have policies that feel very much like DEI in practice. One that also happened to be illegal, because they contradict California law. At this point in the hearing, Schiff was getting agitated since his gotchas weren't landing, and started putting words into the Assistant Attorney General's mouth. But before we play that, we have a quick message for you. Central banks just did something they haven't done in 30 years. They now hold more gold than U.S. treasuries. That's not a coincidence. That's a warning. While the dollar keeps losing ground, smart money is protecting itself with gold. And you can too. Augusta Precious Metals helps everyday Americans move retirement savings into real gold and silver IRAs. No Wall Street games, no fine print, just protections you can actually hold. So, if you've got over $100,000 saved, don't wait for the dollar to sink further and secure your future. Go to freedomforgold.com right now. That's freedomforgold.com and see why so many are making the switch. Now, back to the video.
Okay, so Justice Thomas got it wrong. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Well, you are saying that because he was praising the policies of the University of California. You seem to be saying now that any university that gives a preference to low-income applicants is engaged in illegal DEI, or if they put a focus on first-generation students, that's somehow impermissible. After all the years of criticism of cancel culture, you seem to want to cancel any institution that has views that you disagree with. In answer to the questions about law firms, you want to cancel law firms because they take on unpopular clients to you, to the administration. That is, if a firm represents someone with an adverse interest to the administration, which is their First Amendment right to do, and I would also say their duty to do, you would cancel them. You would cancel universities like Harvard or the University of Virginia that take positions and exercise their First Amendment rights.
When it comes to the universities, the debate is anything but straightforward. First, it's a well-known fact that colleges across the country have DEI programs, be it for student admissions or faculty hiring. Second, it's also well known that Congress has the power of the purse, so the executive doesn't have the right to add new requirements to an already approved grant or freeze it altogether without legislative backing. Now that being said, Trump isn't adding fresh requirements. The argument from the administration is that these universities are, quote, violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which bars discrimination based on race and national origin. Their point is that the government shouldn't finance institutions operating outside the law. But Adam didn't stop there and went on to completely unrelated tangents, saying this.
You would cancel the Associated Press for not using the ridiculous nomenclature of the Gulf of America. You're canceling now the Wall Street Journal because the Wall Street Journal had the audacity to publish an article about Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So this is what's going on in this administration. You've devastated the Civil Rights Division. Hundreds of attorneys, 368, have departed since January of this year. There's been a mass exodus from the Civil Rights Department. It is just a shell of what it used to be. They're being canceled. They're being canceled by you, by the department. Anyone that stands up to this president is at risk of being canceled.
You've really got to wonder what kind of bubble Schiff is living in. No one canceled the Associated Press or the Wall Street Journal. Yes, the AP wasn't invited into the Oval Office, and the Journal couldn't jump on Air Force One during the trip to Ireland. But both still hold press credentials and can access the White House press room. Meanwhile, let's not forget that under Biden, new rules were introduced for press credentials, resulting in over 440 reporters losing their hard passes. We didn't see Adam being that vocal when those were happening, but I guess selective outrage doesn't scream principle.
And I think what you're doing to use the sledgehammer of federal funding with universities to try to coerce them to accepting your right-wing agenda is disgraceful. And using that cudgel will have far-reaching implications, attacking research done by universities, academic independence done by universities. It will establish a dangerous precedent that can be abused by a president of any party, and we should recognize that on a bipartisan basis, even though it does not appear that we do. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The president isn't set yet, as Harvard is taking the Trump admin to court, and some reports suggest the case might end up reaching the Supreme Court after a lengthy legal battle. But one thing is clear. In less than 5 minutes, Schiff managed to unload a mountain of misinformation, all in the service of pushing his political agenda. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.